The letter arrived on a Tuesday. It had no return address, no postmark that meant anything, just a Knoxville, Tennessee cancellation stamp on a standard white business envelope, addressed in block print to the Knox County Sheriff's Office, marked Cold Case, Marta Fenn, 1976, in the same careful hand. The detective who opened it was not the detective originally assigned to the case. That detective had been dead for 11 years. The detective who opened it was Sergeant Louise Pruitt of the Knox County Sheriff's Cold Case Unit, 44 years old, who had been working the Fenn file on a rotation basis since 2019 and who had, over those 4 years, come to understand the architecture of a case that had been constructed very carefully around a single absence of evidence. She read the 3 pages inside. She read them again. She set them down on her desk and sat very still for a moment. The way people sit when something they have been moving toward for a long time has suddenly stopped moving and is simply there. Then she picked up her phone and called the district attorney's office. It was 8:45 in the morning on March 14th, 2024. What was in those 3 pages had taken 48 years to arrive on that desk. And the name at the bottom of the 3rd page, written not as a signature, but as a confession, in the same block print as the envelope, as if the writer understood the difference between claiming authorship and accepting it, was a name that Louise Pruitt and the prosecutor she called, and the community of Farragut, Tennessee, had known for most of their lives. But to understand why that name on that page carried the weight it did, you have to go back to 1976. Back to the summer Marta Fenn disappeared. Back to who she was before she was a case number. Farragut, Tennessee, in the summer of 1976 was a community in the process of becoming something it could not quite see yet. A bedroom suburb of Knoxville that still had enough farmland at its edges and enough distance from the city to feel like its own place. A place where people left their screen doors open in July and children rode bikes to the public pool. And the 4th of July parade down Kingston Pike was attended by people who knew every other face in the crowd. The interstate had just come through, and with it the faint, early tremor of the growth that would reshape the whole corridor in the decades ahead. But in the summer of 1976, Farragut was still small enough that a stranger was noticed, and a neighbor's trouble was a community's trouble, and the Methodist Church on Campbell Station Road had a congregation that kept count. Marta Fenn was 22 years old that summer, the daughter of Howard and Iris Fenn, who had farmed 12 acres on the western edge of the community since 1958. She had graduated from the University of Tennessee in May with a degree in elementary education and had come home for the summer while she waited for a teaching position to open in the county school system. She had been offered a spot at a school in Lenoir City and was expected to begin in September. She was, by every account, a young woman who had arrived at the beginning of her life with the uncomplicated confidence of someone who had worked hard and was not surprised to find herself ready. She taught a Sunday school class at the Methodist Church, 4th and 5th graders, and had been doing it since she was 17. She drove a 1971 Ford Maverick, pale blue, which she kept filled with gas, and her father's old road maps from the glove box. She had a younger brother named Carl, 19, who worshipped her with the specific intensity of a younger sibling who understands that the person ahead of them on the path is showing them what's possible. She had a best friend named Donna Warwick, who lived 2 miles down the road and who had been her closest companion since the 6th grade. She had a habit, when she was reading something she found interesting, of folding the top corner of the page rather than using a bookmark, which drove Iris quietly mad and which Marta had been promising to stop doing since she was 14. On the last evening of July 1976, Marta drove into Knoxville to return a library book and stop at a fabric store on Central Avenue for a spool of blue thread her mother had asked for. She was expected back for supper at 7. Iris Fenn had made fried chicken. Howard had come in from the back field early. Carl was setting the table. 7 o'clock came, then 7:30, then 8. Nobody who knew Marta Fenn would ever sit down to that dinner. Howard Fenn drove the route into Knoxville himself at 8:15, retracing what he knew of his daughter's errand. He found nothing on the road. He found nothing at the library, which was closed by then. He found the fabric store locked and dark. He drove home and called the Knox County Sheriff's Office at 9:03. 2 deputies arrived within the hour. The pale blue Maverick was found the following morning at 7:20, parked on a side street 4 blocks from the fabric store, locked, keys on the front seat. The library book was on the passenger floor, stamped with its return date. The spool of blue thread was in a small paper bag on the seat beside it. She had completed her errands. She had been on her way home. Something had happened between the car and wherever home began. The search ran for 8 days. Volunteers from 3 churches, sheriff's deputies, state patrol units, and neighbors from across the Farragut community walked fields and creek beds and drainage lines from Knoxville's west side to the county line. The Knox County corner of the Tennessee River was searched twice by boat. Nothing was found. Marta Fenn did not appear and did not contact her family and was not seen again after the evening of July 31st, 1976, by anyone who would ever confirm it. The library book was the first quietly planted detail. Its due date, stamped on the return slip, was July 29th. She was 2 days late returning it, which everyone who knew Marta confirmed was completely out of character for her. She had been carrying it for 2 extra days, which meant something had occupied or delayed her in the 48 hours before she disappeared. What that something was would not surface for nearly 5